Everybody, welcome to the Franchise Show. I hope you're all well. So in case you're not aware, I always like to try and describe at the beginning what this show is about. And it's all about the franchise industry, as you would probably guess. It's designed to be a space where we can all have a free-flowing conversation and a debate about the wide topic of franchising. It's going to be in various parts. We've got this live stream, but it's also going to be put out in shorts. We're going to do some checklists potentially from it. What I'm hoping to do is to give people value from watching this. You know, whatever part of franchising you're involved in, it's a tough and difficult decision, and it's one that you should make when you're more informed. And the more discussion we have, the better. So today, the topic is the big questions. So we're going to try and find out what those big questions are. And there's a lot of questions. And I think, especially today being National Mental Health Day, or International even, asking questions, I think, is really important in all aspects of life. But particularly when you're trying to find out whether you're aligned with somebody else. I think asking great questions is really important. So I wanted to now introduce the wonderful Ed Purnell. In case you don't know Ed, and I'm sure you do, Ed is the host of Disenfranchised and Full Disclosure podcasts, and he's a seasoned expert on franchising, and it's an absolute delight to have a chat to Ed, introduce him to you, and to have a discussion about what the big questions might be. So over to you, Ed.
Well, thank you for the kind intro, Harvey. I think maybe a little bit over the top and seasoned expert. I know there's a little bit of salt and pepper in the beard, but
well, not as much as mine. This is what you're going to look like in 10 years' time.
Oh, cheers. I look forward to it. Putting a hat on as well, then, I guess.
Well, that's it.
Cool. So I don't know. Where do you want me to start, really? I mean, I've written down questions for franchisees that they should be asking, and for franchisors as well. I don't think there's necessarily one majorly important one, other than can I see myself being successful here? Perhaps that's maybe the one to start with at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're absolutely right. I think that is the question that most people are asking. They're wanting to know whether this is going to work for them. There's all sorts of perhaps micro questions that they're going to ask to try and confirm that. But yeah, I think that probably is the big question. Is it going to work?
Aside from the money side of things, right? I mean, appreciate money is really, is important, and it's got to make financial sense. And so you have to dig into the numbers. But I actually think one of the most important things that I would recommend doing, and I've done this change in my career, and I've done this kind of potentially investing in a franchise before I realized it wasn't for me. And it's to go through and write down all of your core values, what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, what you hate doing, what you don't like, what you like about your colleagues, what you don't like about your colleagues, in work at the moment, or whatever it is that you're doing, and just really become super self-aware is probably another really good place to start. I don't know, you speak to people on a day-to-day basis, don't you, Harvey? So how do you feel like people do that?
And I think that what you said there really resonates with me. I think it's attempting to try and find out what those core values are. I'll often ask people, how do they picture their life, and how do they picture owning a franchise? It's one of the questions that are asked, and that picture is always different. But look, we've got some wonderful comments here, so I'm going to put a few up on the screen here, because I want to honour our wonderful audience here. Mara, an absolute legend, and a guest last week on the show. So
Hi there, Mara.
I'm pleased that she's here, and she's going to add some great insight. And we've got Leslie Flowers. Leslie is a great friend of mine, has been very kind and sharing a lot of knowledge. And I've been involved in some other LinkedIn lives with Leslie. She has her own, which you need to check out. A fantastic lady and full of great advice. So looking forward to hearing what Leslie has to say. So we've got Simon Wise, great chap, Simon. He's involved in franchise recruitment. Again, he's been a guest on the show. It was a fantastic conversation all about people and recruitment and retaining staff. So it's going to be really good to hear what questions Simon thinks is important. We've got Kelly. Oh, it's lovely to see Kelly. Kelly is a very good friend of mine. She was a co-host on Hour of Empower with the wonderful Don Cohen. That's where I have known Kelly from. She's also an expert marketeer and former guest on the show as well. So we've got all of the family here today. So we've got Leslie. Well, Leslie does think you're seasoned compared with Leslie. And Leslie is seasoned as well. There's lots of salt and pepper going about. Timothy's here. He says hi. Hi to you as well, Timothy. And then finally, we've got a comment here from Simon, which is a lengthy one, which you can want to get in. Here's one I've always wondered. Do prospective franchisees know that franchising is a self-regulating industry in the UK? Would we attract more people into the industry if it was regulated like the USA or other global markets? What do you think about that question?
Difficult one to answer, really. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a question that's at the forefront of most people's minds. They're probably more interested in about, themselves. What are they actually going to get from a franchise? How is it going to support them? Rather than worrying about those. That's a big question, right? That's even bigger a question than
it is a big question.
What a franchise or prospective franchisee might consider. I think the thing is, the franchisee hasn't got any control over, that situation. So they're going to be comparing brands within the same country. It's at the end of the day, it's not like one brand has got that regulated environment and one hasn't. They're both the same. So I don't actually think trying to think it through on the spot, I don't think it'll make a big difference to a prospective franchisee. As in franchising as a whole, I mean, there's still brands in the US, right, that struggle, even if it's regulated. So there's brands around the world that still struggle. Are there some assurances? Possibly, but I still think there's people out there that are, even with the big brands, they've not made it work for whatever reason, and are millions in debt. So, to the individual franchisee, I don't think that there's much difference. I think the difference would be is just educating people about the opportunity, and that should be part of that education, is for them to understand that it's not self-regulated, but there's still some good to be had out there.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And there's an argument perhaps that additional regulation may not put people off, but it's another thing that they've got to consider, they've got to get right. So I think it may offer reassurances as much as it does, offer another thing for people to consider and possibly look at other ways, other investments. Mara's come back with something else here to do with regulation. We have regulation in Italy, and it does not make the difference in attracting, but it does when things go wrong in the relationship. My 2 cents. Well, very good, 2 cents or €2.
It's 2 cents, I think.
Oh, it is. Yes. You're right. It still is. But look, that's interesting and very similar to what you've just said there, Ed, that I think additional regulation perhaps isn't the way to attract more people into the industry. It's a bit like a contract. It's just going to offer perhaps a little bit more security if things go wrong. But I think sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, so I used to recruit across Europe, and in certain countries, the things that were more impactful in terms of whether or not the sector as a whole or the country as a whole were interested in franchising, it seems to be around education. So countries like the US and Australia, there's a lot more education around franchising, and so therefore there seems to be a bigger kind of interest in it as a whole. If I look at somewhere like Denmark, though, that has I think it's got the lowest unemployment rate across Europe, maybe further. That territory was one of the most difficult to recruit for, and that to me is more of an indicator than whether or not they're regulated. It was much more a case of actually, why do they need to go out and start their own business when they can just, they're probably constantly getting headhunted between two job opportunities and getting everything sort of not laid out on a plate for them, but they were getting looked after. So there's not the necessity, there's not too many situations where they have to go out and build something themselves.
That's really interesting, I think. I mean, I've been involved in a little bit of stuff across Europe and the rest of the world. I think a couple of things you've said there resonate with me. I think, firstly, the fact that education is really important wherever you are, whatever part of the world, whether we're in Europe or whether we're talking about America. And I think it's really interesting to talk about the fact that somewhere like Denmark, it's hard to recruit because you've kind of got happiness in the existing framework in the job market, and perhaps sometimes, I don't know whether this is true or not, but sometimes opportunity is born perhaps of a negative sort of initial ignition, that very first thing that drives you perhaps to run your own business or to look at doing something else is perhaps because you're not happy in your role or doing what you're currently doing. So maybe in an economy where there is that much more satisfaction in the job market, that's why it makes it difficult.
Well, so I've been working in recruitment internationally and then franchising for in total of 15 years. And so I've spoken to a lot of people that are at that point in their life where they're looking to make a change. And there's typically four reasons why. And by the way, all of them are kind of underneath that is the financials, right? The financials have to work, otherwise none of the rest of it makes sense. But people tend to make a move and are motivated by taking control over their life in some form or manner. So whether that's the hours that they work, where they work, who they work with, the projects they work on, it's all around control. The next is for a new challenge. Some people have been in the same industry for 20, 30 years and are bored. And they get to that point where they go, well, I need to just do something else. I'm going mad, sort of staying in one place. The next one is to make an impact. So perhaps somebody's maybe financially stable and actually just wants to help give back to their local community, or, as you mentioned, experience some pain in their life that they want to try and fix and remedy somehow. So it could be a family member who's, not being able to get education or something like that. So they put something together. And then the final one, the reason why people tend to move on is like for a feeling of importance. They like to have a job title that makes them feel important to others, proud of themselves. So whether they've been promoted to a director or they want a promotion to a director or CEO, or I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, people like to move on for those reasons. As I say, money is important, but it's normally a driving factor. It's a vehicle to allow people to do one of those other things.
That's really interesting. I'm writing these down. It's a learning for me.
So I would say that so if we're going back to kind of the topic, the big questions in franchising, I think that's one of the most important things for a franchisor to do when they're interviewing a franchisee is to find out actually what motivates the prospective franchisee, because they might say, I want to earn more for myself, but I'd suggest dig a little deeper. And what would that allow you to do more of? What would that give you in your life? And they they might think, actually, I just want to be on an island somewhere in Barbados. Well, your franchise may or may not allow them to do that in 5 years' time. So at least then you can have that real conversation and understand, what is actually going to motivate them further down the line. And then the sort of additional positive thing is, while they're building and growing, or you're kind of coaching them, or whoever's coaching them is supporting them, they can say, well, remember why you're doing this. I know it's tough today, but this is the goal at the end that we're aiming at. And I think it's probably one of the most important questions a franchisor should be asking.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm just going to go back to a few comments here. Just want to recognize a few people that are in the audience here. So we got Dennis. Now, Dennis is a lovely chap, and he is a little bit of a rhymer as well. So we may get a little bit of poetry from Dennis. But it's great to have you here, Dennis, and thanks for being involved. So Alex says, "What's up, everyone?" Well, we'll find out, but it's all good.
Thanks sky.
Yeah.
Always the sky.
That's it. Or is it up? Or is that actually down? Depends where you are. So we got Kevin. Now Kevin Ayres, fantastic chap. He is going to be a guest on the show, I think, in December. He is an expert on all things video. So it's going to be really interesting to hear how video marketing, video content affects a franchise. But thanks so much for being here, and interested to hear your thoughts on what big questions are. We have Craig Brown. That's fantastic. Thanks very much for listening in, Craig. Good to see you here, and a QFP as well. So it's good to have one of those here. It's certainly something that I've been looking to myself. It's a great qualification introduced by the BFA, and perhaps a good topic as well. But thanks for being here, and looking forward to your thoughts on what big questions are. So we've got Ashif. Now, Ashif is a lovely chap, and Ashif is a really good contributor to the Hour of Empower, very insightful. So again, really interested to hear Ashif's thoughts on what questions he might ask if he was looking to start a franchise. Heather's here saying hi, and hi to you as well, Heather. Kevin is obviously enjoying. I think that was related to what you were saying there, Ed. Mara. So what's Mara got to say? Drivers and fears are the most powerful leverage in choosing to become a franchisee. I think that's an interesting point. I think that's what we were talking earlier about, what sparks that initial desire to either run your own business or to invest your money in a franchise, and there's the thing that sparks off the interest, and then there's the thing that stops you doing it as well. And I think all of those can be answered by the right question.
And the fears are kind of just as important, for sure. Like I've heard a lot of people say there's the gap's too big for people to overcome to actually take in the plunge and invest in. And a lot of what you should be doing is conversations with this individual is kind of showing them that it's not such a big jump to take. And I sitting here as a business owner, I know that felt like an absolutely huge leap to take. But actually, one of the things that I did that really benefited me was speak to a lot of other business owners, because it helped me to understand what it's like to actually start a business, but also realize that they're just a normal person like me, right? They're not this kind of magical unicorn who just turns up and goes, I've got a business idea and it's successful, right? They've gone through some difficult times, they've had some challenges, and it's all about keep going. And so for the prospective franchisee, if they can speak to franchisees that are already in this in the brand, just speaking to a few of those, they'll start to go, okay, this is quite normal. These people that have gone and started it, they're just like me. Yeah, this could work.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It gives that reassurance if you can speak to somebody else, even if sometimes that reassurance is saying, well, yeah, you're probably you might mess up, or, things could, go wrong. I think failure is something that, I've discussed it before on a few occasions, but failure is something that you need to go through in order to learn things and get things right. So it doesn't all have to go right for you to succeed. In fact, I think that's how you learn. I think it was really, really interesting that you were saying about what motivates a prospect, and to dig deeper into why that motivates someone. I think in terms of a franchisor asking a franchisee a question, that one is top of my list. You're really trying to understand why they're doing this, because they need to pay for the privilege of it. Yes, they're going to hopefully, make a return on that investment. And it's de-risked a little bit by having the brand behind you. But, you need to have that motivation, and understanding what that motivation is, I think is really important.
There's another question I think is essential as well. So the why, but also when. I've spent 2.5 hours with an individual before, thinking, this is going so well. They absolutely love everything I'm talking about. They're really engaged, and I can see from their background it's making sense. Like looking forward to continuing the conversation. And I was naive letting it last for that long, the call, to be honest with you. Because it turns out that they weren't looking to do anything for, I think it was 2 or 3 years. I was like, oh, come on. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind sort of sharing and helping them to buy into the brand, but actually, make sure that they're looking right now, because if they're just sort of scouting for information, you might feel that it's better to spend less time with them now, because in 3 years' time, your whole model might have changed. Your elements within there might have changed. So there's no point going into the detail. So yeah, when's really important as well.
Absolutely. And they may well have changed completely in their outlook, and what they are thinking of doing. Just wanted to go to a few of the comments, because they are racing in. So I wanted to make sure that we keep up with these. So Kevin said, love that, digging into motivation, keep asking questions. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we've just touched on, and I think really, really important. So we've got Timothy. This is a good first time coming. Oh, thank you, Timothy. Kevin has come back with, following on from Ed's great insights on motivation, how about to spot a growth mindset? Seems like that's a huge indicator of a potential success. Yeah, I think so. I mean, mindset is a really interesting topic for me. Last week with Mara, we were talking about mindset, and she was suggesting that there was between 1 and 10 numbers, and we got to number 1. So it's a big subject, and I think absolutely you need to find out not just the mindset of the potential franchisee, but whether that matches with the mindset of the franchisor, to see if you're aligned.
So I personally think that then leads on to another really important question, which is what's your exit strategy? Because you'll see how much they anticipate they're going to grow over those 5 years, or if they're thinking, well, look, I can see 5 years getting to a certain point, but actually I want to expand on that and go to 10 years. So asking, it's a bit of a cheesy one, isn't it? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? But actually, where do you want your business to be in 5 years' time? What's the exit strategy? Are you looking to build an asset that you can sell on to somebody else? Is it something that you want to continue building after 5 years? Is it something you want to pass on to a family member?
Yeah.
Because if they don't know the exit strategy, you should be planning an exit strategy with them as well. Because again, it's showing them what's at the top of the mountain. It's something to aim for, rather than just, it'd be nice just to buy myself a job, which is not what you want from people. You want people who actually want to, grow and develop themselves and their business.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's the sort of I guess, the final piece of the puzzle. And I think any story needs a sort of beginning, middle, and an end. And if you're starting a franchise or starting a business, it can't go on forever. You need to have a plan as to how that looks, at least in your mind. That could change, but yeah, I think that is really, really relevant and really important as a question. Let's just see a few of the other comments here. Leslie says, to Mara's point, is it not the same for any business, drivers and fears? Yes, I think it probably is. When you're looking at starting any business, there's a reason that you begun, and you definitely have fears that change that path along the way. I think that's true enough of franchising, that it has similarities to starting your own business, but it has benefits, it de-risks it, and there are pluses and minuses that appeal to different people, and it's just trying to find out whether that is the person you're speaking to.
It's the same for any buying and selling interaction, right?
Absolutely. And John says, greetings, gentlemen. Nice to see John. Thanks for showing up. Mara comes back with, Leslie, you're absolutely right, especially as a future entrepreneur. So yeah, I think those drivers, what inspires you to do something, and what scares you, I suppose, are definitely something that is important to understand what they are. Leslie has asked here, if a potential franchiser said their why was money, first, last, and always, would you take them on?
I'd ask them what they're going to do with that money.
Yeah.
Because that then becomes their why. If they're just going to buy luxury cars and all of that sort of stuff, that's their reason why. They want to, have a nice car, have control over what they're doing in their spare time, have enough capital to be able to do whatever they want in their spare time. Then at least you know that why. And does that align with what you want at the end of the day for your franchisees? Could well be. For some brands, it's a lot about the revenue and how much you can kind of generate. If someone's heavily motivated to earn more to allow themselves to have a Ferrari or a mansion, great. But let's be realistic about it. Can you achieve it with us? And if you can, well, let's get serious. This is how you're going to do it.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, again, it's going back to that, what motivates people, and dig a little deeper, So yeah, great point there. So Tim, first of all, welcome, Tim. And Tim has put here, when recruiting new franchisees, the most often asked question, and one of the biggest fears, was how we will be helped with marketing. I have no idea how marketing works. Thus, this is a major fear of people looking to invest in a franchise. I think it is. I think when you're dealing with people's fears, they are part of the digging deeper. When you're asking why, you're also asking perhaps why not as well. So, if somebody has a fear or a reason, and if that reason is that they don't understand marketing and the value of it, and how they might be supported, then I think it's your job to find that out, and to have a discussion about it, so that they can understand what sort of support that they're going to get, in that marketing.
So I think sorry, Harvey, just I think where Tim's coming from there is to maybe identify how to kind of remedy that and help the prospective franchisees understand how you can help them to overcome that challenge. And I think it really depends on the brand and what they offer. Some franchise brands, from what I've seen, need basically a sales and marketing expert to go out there and do it themselves, and then they'll kind of help them to deliver, or they've got a program that they can follow. Others are much more hands-on and able to offer a PR and marketing launch, right? So they get that early support, they get themselves up and running. I think that's good. But I think whatever marketing you do offer to a prospective franchisee to help them kind of shorten that gap, that leap of faith, I think what you need to do is not just say what you have, so not what the benefits are, but how that actually helps them in their day-to-day. So saying we've got marketing support is great, but what does that actually allow? What does that actually do for the individual on a day-to-day basis? Because I've known a lot of people who've sat there after starting a new recruitment desk, for example, and they're underneath a brand going, well, what do I do? Where do I go from here? How do I make any sort of client interactions? How do I make money? Franchisees are no different, right? They do the same thing. They sit there day one going, what do I do? The training's been great. I understand it, but what do I do? So, yeah, trying to get that across in the early days and help them to understand it. Some of it's going to be on you, some of it's going to be on us, but what we provide will allow you to do X, Y, Z is just going to help to shorten that gap.
Yeah. I think that's a very valid point. Again, it's digging a little bit deeper into it and understanding that a little bit more, making it more personal to that individual as to what that fear is. I think one of the things that we've touched on quite a lot of questions that you may ask as a franchisor to a franchisee. I suppose the other side of it is what questions would you ask the other way? I think there are two sides to these big questions. What would you say about that?
I think there's again, I've got loads of questions. And there's some important things like what's the total investment and stuff like that, of course, and what do franchisees earn? What's the attrition rate of franchisees within your brand? Trying to understand all of that. But I like to try and ask questions that are going to put the franchisor on the spot a little bit. So I want them to tell me what makes a successful franchisee. So it's leaving it quite open, but I want them to kind of describe to me exactly what a successful franchisee looks like within their network. And those that don't know the answer to that straight away, I'd be concerned about, right? So that's one question I'd ask. Another would be, how do you help underperforming franchisees? Because there's a reality that you're going to have them in your network. Like, it's not all going to be singing, all dancing. I understand that, but what do you do to help those people? And I think there's a couple of important questions. I'd like to know who'd be my main point of contact as well, because I think you've got to be able to get on with that person on a day-to-day basis, right? Or week-to-week basis. If you don't feel like you can overcome a challenge or a problem with that individual because you're just going to be grating or not getting on with each other for whatever reason, no matter how good the model looks, it's not really worth investing, I don't think, if you can't get on with the team, the people that you're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So there's a few, maybe. I don't know if they're the biggest ones, but there's a few that sort of spring to mind.
They're all big ones. That's the good thing about having that as a subject. No matter what we choose, they're all good questions. And I think that one of the ones that resonates with me there is who is the main contact as well, and whether you get on with that person. I always talk to people about the fact that we've got to see whether we get on with each other, because it's a long-term relationship. And that's got to work, because you're working with somebody for a 5 or 10 year period. So you've got, and it can't necessarily be easily quantified, but you can tell when you're chatting to someone. Just want to quickly recognize a few more people here before we continue. Kelly says, I have seen some franchisees don't understand there is a loss of work involved. You don't just get your location, become successful. Yeah, absolutely right. It takes work. You're handed certain things to help and to assist you. But yeah, you've got to roll your sleeves up, and you've got to work hard to make it successful. And that's going back to what you just said there about helping underperforming franchisees. That's exactly the situation there, because they're all given the same information at the beginning, but some do better with it. And that's just exactly what Kelly's highlighted there.
I think it's down to the franchisor to make sure they know, because you don't want somebody who's going to come into your network and think it's an easy drift. They're just going to set up and things will run. Even
Mhm.
for the kind of managed sites where you kind of manage and bring in an operations manager or something like that, it's still going to be a load of work that you need to do. Well, it's either that or invest an absolute ton of money, right? So not making it viable. So yeah, I think it's down to the franchisor to make sure that the prospective franchisees are fully aware of what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, I think you're right. So Phil is here, Phil Mowat. Nice to see you here, Phil, and I'm going to be interested to see your comments on the questions that we need to ask. Kevin has come back with, don't you just hate those calls? Just want to quickly go down here, see what else we've got. So Mara says, no matter what we start, particularly because we don't know how, other than the first few steps, there will always be fear. Yeah, I think quite possibly. I think with a franchise, hopefully you can. I think when you're starting your own business and you're an entrepreneur in that way, I think that very much applies. I think it still does apply in the franchise world, but you've got somebody that's trying to take you through those steps, just as Ed wisely said there, to talk about the whys, the whens, the exit strategies, that when someone's ultra excited about their idea, they may not logically think through these things. So yeah, I think it's very important. So and John's come back here with a genuine question. Does it make sense for spending your own hard-earned money to market and finance somebody else? Yes or no? Well, it's that is a good question. You were talking there, Ed, about asking some of those tough questions. It's gone very Theopathetus here, hasn't it? But yeah, I mean, that's what you are doing. You are spending your money, but you're investing in something where somebody else has already done the hard work to test and develop a brand. And I think when people think that they could spend that same money and create a brand themselves, it's not something that they can do. Sometimes they have to go away, do it, and go, oh yeah, actually it's going to cost £500,000 to do that, or probably more.
Well, the alternative is your time. So having started my own business, I didn't realize there's so many seemingly small decisions, like signing up for a £5 piece of software that you will spend an hour or 2 hours procrastinating over because you want to make sure you set up everything right for the long run, right? So actually what my time's worth now is a lot more than the £5 per month sort of that I was worrying about. So investing in somebody else and following their model that they've already gone out there and done that, it's worth it. I think in many cases. Now I had to do it for myself because I looked at a few franchise brands and I wanted to change everything, and I knew I'd be a bad franchisee. So I've got to go through this process, right? But it's not for everybody. So I'd say, yeah, it can be, but it depends on the individual.
You asked yourself some tough questions, yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
I think you're absolutely right, though. When you start a business and you're trying to develop something that is scalable, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of tiny decisions you have to make to create something that's scalable. And you're absolutely right. It's that investment of time, whether you want to make that or not. And again, it comes back with why you want to do something, and when. It very much comes back to when, because if you want to achieve the success that you want and have an exit strategy in 5 years, it could take you that to build something of your own. So again, asking that question when and finding out why, I think is really relevant to that. So Mara says, Leslie. In franchising, basically, you are using the how of somebody else. But as you said, if a franchisee's why is money, I personally would decline the application. Money is the result. Yeah, we've touched on that. There's nothing wrong with money being the motivation, provided there's things behind that as well. And that again, I go back to some wise words of Ed here, that you need to delve a bit deeper.
Do you know what? Some people don't know why they want more money as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I could speak to some of my friends, and what would you want? What would you change career for? More money? Well, what's that going to allow you to do? Now I've asked that to them, and they've just shrugged their shoulders, like, I don't know, buy stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, that's great, but
exactly. That is not the motivation. And if you get more money and there's not other motivations behind it, then you haven't got that motivation, especially if, like your friend, they just don't know that. So we've just got another few people here. So Jeff is here. No problem, Jeff. Good to have you here anytime. Jeff is a good friend of mine, and I support him on a post I do on a Sunday. So great to see you, and looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Simon has come back with Mara. I would much rather recruit somebody who is motivated by money, because it means the franchisor will earn it too, rather than someone who wants to teach the world to sing. Well, it's a very good point, Simon, about the fact that if a franchisor is successful, and I'm going to use a broader term of successful here, but in terms of it enjoying, and for the franchise to fulfill those whys, but also earning the right amount of money, of course, because the model is based on royalties. So if one wins, the other wins, and that's one of the positives of the model. For the franchisor to win, the franchisee has to be successful. So it's in both interests. So well, we've got the legend here that is Mr. Donald Cohen. Great to have Don here. And if it wasn't for Don, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. He's a legend, and you must catch his show, Hour of Empower. And while I'm name dropping other shows, straight after this one is my good friend Kelly's show, Awesome Journey. So check out that one as well. So we've got Craig has come back here with lots of people talk a good game, especially at interview point. What calls to action from a perspective have you seen that show clear focus to move on with the purchase of a franchise territory? That's an interesting one. What do you think about that one?
I was going to see what you said first, Army.
It's my show. You have to go first.
Oh, right. Okay. I think everyone's individual, so difficult to kind of pinpoint that, I think. But some of the things that I've seen is when they ask you, so what's the next steps? That for me is a good signal. So what do I do next? How do I move this thing forwards? I think that's a sign that they're interested at that point and they want to move forwards. When they're actually put together a business plan, like if you send them away to put together your own business plan and they actually do it in a timely manner and you're not chasing them for it, that's probably a pretty good sign. When they're realistic with that business plan, that's probably a good sign as well. If somebody's kind of looking at big figures, I'd kind of wonder, have they really looked at this seriously and thought about it properly? So yeah, there's some.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think what I would add to that is sometimes people accidentally use the wrong tense when they're talking. So they will start talking as if they've already made the decision to do something. So they will start saying, well, when I have my coffee shop, or when I have my car wash franchise, or when I have my whatever franchise it is, but they're not using if. they're using when.
Mm.
So I think that, you know, that is perhaps a sign that in their mind they've moved on to do that.
That said, anything can change in those last few conversations, right? Or between the last few conversations, because that person who says, when I start my coffee shop, might actually be talking about another coffee shop as well as your one. Like, they haven't made that decision yet, right? They're going to do it, but you know, it's no guarantee that there's success. And of course things change in their life as well. You know, something might happen with a family member or with their current job. I've seen lots of people being offered, you know, contract work or a pay rise or something like that. But you know, especially if you know the reason why they wanted to move on in the first place, and if it's not solely motivated by money, you've got a chance to kind of rescue that one. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that, you know, Craig's right here. I think you don't know at that point, and you're going to have some conversations that just won't go anywhere from either perspective. And I think that's just sort of part of the decision making process on both parties. And I think, you know, delving deeper, asking the questions, building that trust journey, and continuing to get to know those people, you find out. I mean, Ed, you were speaking there that, you know, you had a 2-hour conversation with somebody that didn't want to go ahead for 3 years, but, you know, you just sometimes have to get a feel and learn as you go along, and, you know, you find out these things by asking good questions.
That was totally my fault, because I didn't set the expectations for the call. And
Well, that's it. I'm conscious of time. We're probably going to be wrapping up in 5 or 10 minutes, but I just wanted to fly through the last of these comments, because I like to recognise people who are getting involved, because it's, you know, it's about the community here and sharing all of this stuff. So Leslie says, if it's not for service, ultimately philanthropy. I was thinking maybe I won't read that because I might not be able to pronounce that one, but I did it. So they're out. We can have the Ferrari, yes. However, I was thinking this person was money first, people second. Not okay with me. Yeah, I think so. Again, you're delving deeper. You found out maybe why they're interested in the money side of it, and it's because they want to buy a Ferrari. But, you know, it's again a little bit more than that, and whether that's realistic, you know, and just trying to talk through that kind of life that they're looking for from that.
Depends on the network's goals and values, because if the reason the business was start up is to improve the health of some, you know, the local communities, well, you know, that's not aligning with someone whose main goal is to buy more stuff. Excuse me.
Absolutely, no worries. I'm just gonna. So Mara said here, what if money does not come as the franchisee wants to? They could start to find ways to reach that personal goal that could affect the other franchise and the full system. Yes, I think what we're talking about here is, you know, people sort of digressing from the model, you know, trying to do things on their own accord and damaging, you know, the wider brand. I think it's about communication and making sure that you talk to people before they get to that point. You know, go back to what Ed was saying there about how to support underperforming franchisees. I think that touches on there. Find out why and see how you can help them and what their expectations for success is. And John has come here with, is a franchise a retirement pension for people who initiated and succeed in marketing their brands? So why not start yours? Again, it goes back to the same point that, you know, that we discussed earlier, that it's time, you know, and, you know, making all of those decisions, getting them right, trying, testing, and getting that perfect system. Yes, people can do it, but it takes a long time and it takes lots of talent around you. So Leslie has said here, I didn't think I'd had anything to say on this live. Well, you certainly do, Leslie. I know nothing about franchising and frankly here to support Harvey. Well, thank you very much. But somehow I find myself curious and listening for resonance. Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it, and thank you for your, for your input, because it's been really interesting and has helped drive the conversation. Thank you for turning up, and no problem at all. Okay, this is one from Mara. One question that the franchisor could ask is, what kind of training and ongoing support do you expect? Yeah, I think so. It's a good question.
Or need.
Yeah.
Because, if they are self-aware, they're going to know I'm going to need everything. And then from the franchisor's perspective, if you know you're not going to be able to handhold them through and give them some leads from day one, well, okay, look, this probably isn't going to be right.
Yeah, I think so. Mara's put here, guys, this subject needs a second round. Well, I think it does. We're going to have a second round with Mara on franchise mindset, so maybe we need to have a second round with Ed. Simon's put, do I need to use black ink to sign the franchise agreement? That's always a good buying signal. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that goes to the point that, you can ask good questions and you can get a good indication as to whether people are going to be the right fit for one another. But actually, ultimately, until you've got to this point, you're never going to be 100% sure. It's just trying to understand the process a little bit better is a healthy and good thing to do. Okay, so this is the last one in, and I think we're caught up. And Simon comes back here with saying, seriously, as soon as the sales process flips to the reverse sell and they sell themselves to you, you know they are keen to move on. Yes, that's a really interesting point, and I think that goes with what I was saying about where they just change the language that they use, or I think it certainly indicates a shift in position. But yeah, I think that's not necessarily a question, but certainly something good to
I think that's a really good point from Simon. I've not seen it a million times, loads of times, but yeah, those ones tend to be pretty serious, especially if they're doing it at the latter stages.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, I think we're sort of coming to a conclusion for today. I want to thank everybody for coming along, supporting, giving their input. It's been a really fascinating conversation for me, and I wanted to especially thank you, Ed, for taking your time to be on the show and sharing the discussion. It's been really valuable to me, and I hope to people listening.
No problem. An hour is definitely not long enough to talk about franchise recruitment or franchisee recruitment. So yeah.
Well, we definitely have to have you back, Ed. So we need to get that in. Yeah, perfect. Well, again, thank you, everyone. We will be here same time next Tuesday, 5:15. But until then, thanks very much and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.